Generating speed is a fundamental pillar of great surfing, yet many beginner and even intermediate surfers struggle with the correct technique, and it has a massive impact on their surf progression, sometimes holding them back for years on end. In this episode, I'm going to be pulling from my experience coaching thousands of surfers over the past 5 years, and I'm going to teach you to perfect your speed flow on a wave. What's up guys, my name is Kale Brock. I'm a surfer and a filmmaker and a surf coach, and today I want to help you to generate speed on a wave. Let's jump into it. This episode is brought to you by the Beginner Surfer's Roadmap. It's my new online course designed to take you from a beginner surfer all the way through to intermediate. Check it out at the link in the description below or head to thesurfersroadmap.com. These clips are from one of my wave pool retreats where I take a bunch of surfers, chuck them in a wave pool for a day, do a bunch of video analysis and surf skate training, and let the progression ensue. Speed flow technique requires you to position yourself on the wave strategically in this upper part of the wave that we call the power zone. This allows you to go through a controlled fall back down the wave along with a great compression in the body. What this does, it accentuates and maximizes your forward momentum. If you can't get up into the power zone, it's generally because there's not a strong enough jump factor. How you actually cue that movement in, think about it as a jump, okay? And that literally means as you sort of move down the wave, what I want you to do is actually look up to the top of the wave, point there as well, as we spoke about in our last lesson, and actually think about jumping up into that section of the wave. What that does, it lifts us up into that power zone with speed and momentum, which can then be capitalized back on the way down the wave. With the jump, you actually want to find a nice shrug as well with the arms. The shrug, what it does, it allows that energy, that kinetic potential to flow through from the legs with the jump up through the torso and into the shoulders. And the shoulders, by shrugging, actually help lift the rest of the body with the surfboard up the wave. So if that's a great example of speed flow technique, what are some less optimal examples? Let's have a look at a few sticking points that many surfers struggle with and are losing speed as a result. If you have a look at this example here, you can see that the surfer is sort of unhinging at the hips instead of exploding out of the legs. That's a really important distinction to make. Many surfers, instead of compressing into the lower body, end up hinging at the hips instead, which is a much weaker position to actually surf from. I said this in one of my last tutorials. If I said to you, I want you to put 100 kilos on your shoulders and then jump up in the air for me, what would you do? You would go down into a really strong, low squat position with bent knees. Okay, you wouldn't actually hinge at the hips because that's a much weaker position to jump from. So that's essentially what we're looking at on the wave. If a surfer is hinging at the hips, they're lacking that necessary explosive power to get from the bottom of the wave to the top of the wave. A common mistake that I see is that people are so sort of desperate to get up to the top of the wave that they'll actually come up with little cheats to get up there. Now the problem with that is often those sort of suboptimal techniques actually sort of shave off your potential once you do get up the top of the wave. So they're not actually ideal. And one of those is trying to rotate up the wave instead of jump and shrug. And this is a really important distinction to make. As you can see here, the surfer on the right has rotated their way. So they've gone low, but not low enough. And then they've thrown their right arm across the body to actually sort of force that almost like reaching for the top of the wave. What that does is it pulls the shoulders across the body in the wrong direction to where you actually want to go. Also what it does, it actually limits you once you start looking at maneuvers, because we want to actually hold on to that rotational potential until we can use it and cash it in at the right point. And the right point is during a maneuver. One thing I also see frequently is surfers struggling to initiate their bottom turn early enough to get into the power zone of the wave. If a surfer takes too long to initiate their jumping action, they'll lose momentum and really struggle to get back up the wave. Timing is everything. So how can you practice this technique at home? Something that we work on a lot in my surf skate program and in my new beginner surf program is the sort of surf skate practice routine associated with that in order to really get some time behind the wheel, so to speak. And one thing that's really effective I've found is actually imagining that with your trailing arm, so in this case it's the right arm for the surfer, imagining that you actually have to pluck something off the face of the wave and actually pull and shrug at the same time in order to actually accentuate and I guess emphasize that nice upward rotational work with the shoulders, and to also give you a cue at which to release the compression. Because if you release that compression too early, you'll find that a lot of your energy comes out this way towards camera instead of actually being held onto and propelling you up into the power zone. So that just that arm, that little cue, by actually getting it low and down onto the face of the wave and then plucking and shrugging your way up the wave will have some really nice carryover into your speed flow on your forehand. So now let's have a look at the backhand. The fundamental principles are the same. We still want to look at the power zone. We still want to look at compression and extension in the body, but it's the arm movements that are slightly different on the backhand. So you want to actually pretend that you're scooping up dirt from the bottom of the wave. If you imagine, just by watching this example here, where's the dirt? It's sort of in this little moment here. Now what that does, again, it stimulates the surfer to get low for a start, which is really important, and then also to find a nice lift and extension on their way back up the wave. Ideally, what I tell the surfers to do is to pick up the dirt from here and then lift and throw it over the back of the wave in this direction. And what that ends up looking like is this nice sort of fluid movement. Speed flow is really important because it provides a really solid foundation for the future progression in your surfing. This low to high principle is really important in surfing's maneuvers. Remember that speed flow is essentially just a less intense version of a maneuver. A less intense change in direction is required for speed flow than a maneuver, but the fundamental principles remain the same. And that's why it's really important to get it right from the get-go. So I hope these tips have helped you guys with your speed flow and they've cleared up a couple of things. If you're new here, make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, let me know in the comments what else are you struggling with your surfing, and you can join me on Instagram at Kale's Broccoli, and don't forget to check out our new course, the Beginner Surfers Roadmap, over at thesurfersroadmap.com. It's a cracker. Thanks so much for tuning in, guys. I'll see you soon.